everyone, this is Joel Morales with Ai.Informed, where we educate the world on the possibilities of artificial intelligence. And today, we are going to be talking about some of the potential risks and downsides of using generative AI. So, generative AI has taken the world by storm these last couple of years, as many of you know. By now, if you haven't heard about ChatGPT, you're probably living under some kind of rock. So, the world is just at this point now really has the imagination of people been captured by this new technology. And of course, AI is not new. AI has been around for a long time, and many people have asked me, what is artificial intelligence? Well, artificial intelligence is software that mimics the human-like behaviors. So for a long time, machines have really been mimicking human muscle, right? Especially during the Industrial Revolution, we started using machines to help do a lot of our heavy lifting. We started using machines to do a lot of our routine tasks. So we started accelerating the production of products in different, manufacturing plants and that kind of thing. So obviously that was a revolution where we started using machines to essentially replace human hands, where now human hands weren't the only thing that could build something. Well, in the latest trend of technology, now in the wave of the AI revolution, we are now starting to mimic the human mind. And that's really what AI is. It's just software that's able to mimic a lot of what the human mind is capable. So, of course, there's different levels of this. There's current state of AI, which is not yet what's called AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. And AGI is comprised of a version of artificial intelligence that will do something like 98 to 99% of what a human mind can do. So once we hit AGI, we are at a point now where really AI can basically tell all the same jokes that we could tell. It could think the same way that we could think. It can have cognition, it could reason, it could do critical analysis of situations, and that AGI we're still not there yet. AI, especially generative AI, is still extremely powerful in its infancy state, but it hasn't reached AGI just yet. And then, of course, moving from AGI, we will then go to ASI, that's where we hit artificial superintelligence or supreme intelligence, where now the mental cognition or the thinking capability of this AI will far surpass human beings. So, and of course, we're not anywhere near there yet, as far as I know. So there's different really ways to approach this thing called AI. And again, right now, as of the moment of this recording, it's just software. It's just software that mimics the human mind. However, a particular software that's really caught the world by storm, or a particular AI subset, is generative AI. And generative AI is what you've heard about with ChatGPT, with Google Gemini, with DALL-E, with Midjourney. These are really technologies out there and companies out there that are now having the ability for AI to start producing predictive-based text and or pictures and or videos. So here's a great example. If I were about to say the words, Mary had a little blank, most of you would know that the next word in the sentence would be lamb, because you've already heard that statement before. Well, that right there, my friends, is how generative AI can absorb billions of phrases and begin to then process and create predictive text and or outcomes of certain sentences, paragraphs, pages of text, and start to then produce what feels like machine originality. So it could essentially be inspired and or receive a lot of information and then eventually rework that information in a new and creative way. Now that is when AI is working the way we want it to. But right now, in the state of generative AI, there is some current downsides that I don't know if we're talking about enough. I don't know if the current downsides of generative AI are even really public knowledge. I feel like we've become so obsessed as a society to try to maximize performance and performance and performance on these AI models. We haven't really stopped so much to consider the security concerns. We haven't really slowed down to consider the copyright concerns. And so today I just want to take the time to just talk a little bit about what are some of the current downsides of this new thing with generative AI that has swept the world by storm. Of course, as always, I have my little handy dandy notepad here. So I wrote down a few ideas, and the first thing I want to talk about is more doesn't always mean better. So I've talked about at length in many other videos, as well as in newsletters and posts like that, that data or AI runs on data. And so think about this. AI, when it's gathering all this data together, these little data points are called parameters. And these data points can be everything from blog posts to social media posts to websites, videos, transcriptions of different texts and books and whole libraries of information. These parameters, these data points, are what you give to this generative AI that's really built on transformer large language model. These large language models receive all of this information and then can create an output. Well, so much of what is the current state of AI is focused simply on performance and just being able to process vast amounts of data quickly and efficiently. And the problem is when you're focusing a lot on data process performance, there isn't a lot of focus on data curation, data quality, okay? Which is why sometimes AI gets it wrong. If you've used ChatGPT before, if you've used some of these other large language model based technologies like Google Gemini and others, you'll see at the bottom, it almost has this little kind of reminder that, hey, sometimes ChatGPT makes mistakes. And have you ever wondered how or why? Like, how is it possible? And that's the thing, because so much of the focus is on performance and processing vast amounts of data and being able to read through and scour through all this different information and then produce some kind of text based off of it, that we haven't really slowed down to actually analyze if the data that these large language models are using is actually good data. In fact, I was recently reading a book on generative AI, and it was talking specifically about how there are certain AI large language models trained on, for example, 500 billion parameters. Well, these 500 billion parameters are different, like I said, websites and things of that nature. Something like 30,000 websites on one of these particular, that 500 billion parameter subset, something like 30,000 websites were found to be sexist. They were found to be, they have racist content. They were found to have violent content. And this is some of the content that was given as part of the large language model for the AI to train on. So, of course, when you start to give that kind of volatile information or that kind of unreliable information or just downright, wrong type of information to the AI, it can do its best to do curation. And of course, a lot of these machine learning engineers and these companies are investing quite a bit to try to filter out data that is really not appropriate for most users. Sometimes the data slips through. So sometimes what I'm trying to say is when it comes to data, more doesn't always mean better. So, and I think especially for businesses that are trying to now find a way to leverage artificial intelligence for their business, it, more doesn't always mean better. Sometimes the answer is a smaller, localized language model that's trained specifically on the tasks and information of your business, which is why there really is now a wave of small language models coming. Local, and what I mean by local is like language models, so large language models or small language models that exist within your business that you can train, right? That you can train, and it'll help understand really what your business is about, and it won't try to pull your business data out across the internet and then add it to a bucket with thousands of other people's different inputs for like their searches and stuff like that. I think that brings me to my other point, which again, the data on the internet is what the data that AI was trained on. And we didn't really, the internet data wasn't meant to be something you train AI on, because of course, as many of you know, we can post anything we want on the internet. For the most part, of course, social media platforms, I think, have done a relatively decent job trying to keep the platform safe and free from, violent speech and that kind of thing. But it's still the internet. Like, you can still write up a blog post and put it somewhere. And depending upon what these large language models get trained on, a lot of that information can be incorrect. Which is why, by the way, AI can be incorrect. Because AI is only as good as the quality of data that you give to it. Now, of course, this is now starting to really bring the difference between data collection and data curation. Data collection is what I've been talking about so far. A lot of businesses that are producing these large language models, they're just focused on being able to collect a lot of data, process it, and then spit out, information. Well, again, without data curation, that quality of production, or the quality of the product, is just not going to be there. So this is going to open up a whole new world for jobs. This is going to open up a whole new world for whole sectors of business that are now focused on curating data for AI and almost adding data compliance to artificial intelligence, which is like something that's just fascinating to me. Like, we're now entering a world where now humans are going to have to play judges on the information that AI produces, and we're going to have to approach this thing responsibly, which I can't wait to talk about in later sessions about some of the 6 or 7 or 8 domains or so about using AI responsibly. I can't wait to cover that with you. But so data curation, being able to now start to filter, analyze, and understand the data that these AIs are being trained on, and make sure that it's high quality. That right there is going to be an entire new market for people to work in. That's a whole new business opportunity. That's a whole new job opportunity. So that's something that's really, really cool. Another downside that people aren't necessarily considering too much right now for generative AI, that, well, I alluded to it earlier, but another downside to generative AI currently is the simple data leakage risk. Now, what is data leakage? So let me add some context here. Samsung, Apple, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America have all prohibited their employees from using ChatGPT. I'll read that again. Samsung, Apple, JP Morgan Chase, and Bank of America have all prohibited their employees from using ChatGPT. Now, why would they do such a thing? Think about it. If you start to, let's say, use ChatGPT to ask it questions about helping you summarize a call, So let's say you transcribe a meeting that happened, you pull out the transcription, and then you upload it into ChatGPT and say, hey, ChatGPT, can you please just go ahead and summarize this call for me so I can put it into my notes? Or if you're asking ChatGPT to do some mathematical, equations for you. So you start to put in financial data from your company into ChatGPT to ask it to run some, mathematical, formulas or something like that. Although having the convenience to just talk to a machine or talk to an AI and ask it to perform a function without needing to program it or code it is awesome. But the downside is now your company's data is now sitting inside ChatGPT OpenAI servers, and it's very hard to now go back and try and delete that data. So now data that is proprietary, it is the private property of a lot of the businesses that we work for. If we're not careful, we can easily release that data into the wild of AI right now, which right now the world of AI is still having problems with keeping the data clean in the first place. So of course that's a security concern. And that's why more and more businesses are banning their employees from allowing ChatGPT to be used. I think it was the country of Italy, shortly after OpenAI, came live, actually banned ChatGPT in the country for only a short period of time, but simply because of the lack of privacy that it now infringes upon for its users. And so that's a huge thing. Another thing that I find really interesting is that a solution to putting data out there into the AI Wild West and hoping that it stays secure, a solution for that is localized. I mentioned this earlier, localized AI. So now imagine running ChatGPT and other types of language models on your local servers in your company behind your security perimeter. And it's something that we are really, really excited about, because this is the kind of technology that is going to help businesses still leverage the promise and the power of large language models, but now in a smaller, more targeted fashion, local to their business, kept inside and built within their organization. So now it's actually a safer way to use AI, right? And what's cool about this is NVIDIA is actually really just recently, very, very recently, now allowed for localized chatbots to run in your private servers. So NVIDIA is coming, they understand that this is a big concern for a lot of organizations. So they're coming to the table with a really neat solution that I'm going to read up more on and share in other videos with you all. But man, I am super excited about what is on the table for privatized, localized, customized AI for business, which is really, really cool. One more thing that's also, I mentioned before, as a security concern is not just the lack of the ability to delete data. Once it actually leaves your computer, it ends up in OpenAI servers. So not only is the lack of data deletion is a problem, but once the data is out there and sitting in one of the servers that these large language models store their data in, is now data leakage. And what does that mean? That means, we've heard about this term, lazy AI. And lazy AI points to something called generative AI memorization, where essentially when you ask the generative AI a question, all it's going to do is it's going to say, oh, I know a question, I know an answer to that. And it's going to copy and paste. And it's not going to do a lot of originality or origination within that copy and paste of data. And at times we have seen models like ChatGPT and others actually post to strangers phone numbers, private URLs, data that's protected by copyright, like movie scripts and song lyrics that should not be shared to the public like that. So we've actually seen copyright infringement. We have seen data leakage for proprietary sensitive information personally identifiable information released in some of these language models simply because all it's doing is it's just copy and pasting. So again, when I say we, I mean extremely generally, we're trying to make this better, where we're trying to curate the data, but it's still so much data, and so much of the incentives right now for businesses is just to incentivize the ability to process a lot of it. That filtering power is not always there. So if you're putting your information into a large language model over the internet, there is a chance that it can show up somewhere else in someone else's search. So this is called data leakage. Of course, huge concern that I don't hear many people talking about. Maybe it's because, this big thing about AI has kind of taken the world by storm, and there's just been a lot of noise, but not a lot of substance. And I just want to share with our audience, with our viewers, especially those who are trying to use AI for the sake of business, data leakage is real. And there are some real ways to solve this problem that we can talk about in later episodes. But there is security concerns when it comes to using generative AI. So that's just something for you to, kind of keep in mind as you're, just kind of interacting with this technology. Last thing I'm going to share is, and I alluded to it earlier, is copyright issues. So I've shared this on a video before, and I'll share it again. The New York Times is suing OpenAI because OpenAI used its large language model to train on millions and millions of parameters, based on OpenAI's based on New York Times protected content. Now, of course, New York Times, that is a paid subscription. You have to pay to be a reader, and that's how they make their money, that people pay to read their content. Well, when you have companies like OpenAI using that content without New York Times express permission, and then adding it into their large language model, and then using it to produce other news content for their competitors, then you've got a copyright problem. And right now, this is such an issue. I mean, it's the Wild West out there right now, folks. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a lawyer, and he's been a lawyer for over almost 40 years, and he owns his own law firm here in Tampa, Florida. And he was telling me that there really isn't any real copyright laws out there yet. Of course, with this thing that kind of took the world by storm, almost by surprise with generative AI, we are now trying to catch up. We're trying to play catch up, and we're trying to now find a way to protect information that's now been created by a machine. Most of the times we've been able to do patents and copyrights for things created by humans. But now the rules change when the products, information, books, songs, code, software is all built by machines. There's no way to protect that. So one of the things that I was doing some research on before this episode was for a person or a business to copyright some kind of product, software, song that was partially created with a machine, there needs to be a substantial amount of human development mixed with machine development. And so far, I haven't found very clear answers on how much does a product need to have human-based development and how much of it needs to have AI-based development for it to qualify for copyright. So far in my research, I have found that it's a case-by-case basis. But my gosh, what a time that we're living in. That now we have to find a way to avoid copyright infringement because of artificial intelligence. I mean, gosh. So again, this is me just sharing some of the things that I'm learning with you. I am not a machine learning engineer. I'm not a data scientist. I'm just a person that's fascinated by this thing called artificial intelligence. And I just want to keep sharing this journey with you on the things that I'm gathering and the things that I'm reading about. And I really want to invite you into a conversation with me. Tell me what you think. Ask questions. Let's explore this thing together. If I've said something in today's podcast that really piqued your interest, feel free to reach out to us, either in the comment section or in our email. and we're happy to continue this conversation with you. The goal is that as we produce more and more of these episodes, as we share more and more of this information with you, we want everyone to be more and more AI informed.